Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today's project is going to be a 1970s circa Zebco reel. It's the model 6020, made in Japan, and 60s, 70s was the era of the Japanese reel where they were contracting with U.S. brand names to build their reels. This one's a nice one, but it's a little sluggish. And this one was brought to us by Scott. And Scott's been doing a lot of flea market finds lately, and this is one of the ones that he found and he's bringing back to me. Well, I want to start by removing the exterior parts, and as I do, I want to encourage all of you to subscribe to my channel. And particularly if you like the art of reel repair, if you kind of like just learning a little bit about fishing reels, if you want to see how they were made, how they come together, how they come apart. Well, that's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to show you how to do it yourself. That's the idea behind this channel. Try to take the nervousness or the anxiety out of possibly fixing or taking a reel apart. And if I can do that, well, then I'll consider myself having been successful. Well, there's a very interesting bend in this handle. I'm not sure that's correctable, but as I'm turning this screw, I'm noticing that the handle is kind of going up and down too. So, not sure what's going on there. But hopefully it doesn't affect the operation of the reel too much. This screw should be a through screw, which is connecting into the handle. That's probably why it's wobbling the way it is. You can see how that reel is turning as I'm trying to remove this screw. We'll find out which one's bent in a moment. Oh, something just fell out there. That's a washer. That's okay. Let's see if yep, that's the screw. You can see that the screw's got a bend on the end of it, that it's not square. So I'm going to just use a vise. I have a bench vise here. I'm going to just see if I can't press that back in. Let's see if that doesn't straighten it out without ruining the threads. Well, a little bit of help, maybe not as much as I would like. I'm just going to give it a gentle tap. See if we can't straighten it out that way. Kind of reminds me when I was a little kid and we used to straighten out the nails. All right, well, we'll see if that works it any better. I'm going to put that screw back in here. We still have a little bit of a movement on this one. I'm not sure there's much you can do. This is kind of like the way an axle shaft, once it gets bent out of shape, it's very difficult to put that back together the right way. Shouldn't impact the performance of the reel, so we'll hope for the best. Assume the worst, hope for the best. There's a little washer. I don't want to lose that. That's sitting on my table here as well, so let's get this out for a moment. Put that washer right back on there. So from an organization standpoint, when you take these pieces and parts off, one of the things you want to do is find a home for them. Don't scatter them all across your bench as you're working on the projects. And I use a fast food container as my parts tray. That changes from time to time. Sometimes it's the bottom of a milk jug. Sometimes it's well, anything that's kind of around that can hold and store the parts easily and effectively. It's where you want to know where to go. This side plate has 3 screws. I'm just testing them right now, getting them started. If they were tough at all, I would go spray them down with a penetrating oil to try and let it soak in. I'm going to remove the star adjuster. That goes into the box. Going to remove the spool. Taking a look underneath, this has a traditional rotor held down by a rotor nut. So we'll show you how to get to that. This is mostly a flat-bladed one. Sometimes, this is a machine screw. Yeah, sometimes a Phillips head will work. Sometimes it won't. In this case, it won't. So I'm just going to continue with the removal of these screws with a flat-bladed screwdriver. These were very dependable reels. This one it's a 60-20. If you would use coating, you would say the 20 size would be the coating on this one. I think by today's standards, it's much closer to a 30 size reel, maybe even a 40 size reel. It's all about line capacity and about where it's appropriate. So a 30 and a 40 is good for rivers. It's good off the back of boats, lake fishing, pier fishing. It's a little light for surf casting. It's a little light for ocean fishing, but inshore ocean and the bays and the inlets, you can certainly use that. Those 3 screws now should help us remove that side plate. But before I do that, I want to see if that anti-reverse is on, and it is on. I'm going to use the anti-reverse override switch to turn it off. The reason I do that is when you go to remove the main gear in that, if this one has a setup that involves the main gear, if you leave it in the on position, you can push pieces out that weren't intended or you really didn't want to have pushed out. Lower case is clean, upper case has got some dirt on it. We'll deal with that in a little bit. Well, and here's kind of where we are with that. So very simple design here, and the main gear and the crosswind arm came out with that. And as I kind of thought, the main gear serves as a drive for your pinion gear, and it also serves as the back end of that as the click ratchet. So if you left this clicker involved, you would have a little bit of difficulty getting this piece in and out. And we're just going to pull all of that out. There's just a little bit of grease on here, so I'm going to clean this side up. I'm going to use a penetrating oil as a general degreaser. I'm going to use one of the paper towels that Scott is so generously supplied. Scott, it's kind of a little bit of an inside joke, but Scott wraps all of his reels in paper towels, which is wonderful because lots of paper towels are needed for his reels. Before I go any further, I'm going to pull the axle shaft out, and boy, is there a lot of old grease and grime. So as we were working with this reel, we noticed that this was pretty much grease bound, and the core issue here with the grease is all the stuff that's accumulated on this axle shaft. The main gears in that look pretty straightforward. The axle shaft does not. Once you get that penetrating oil on, it's pretty easy to work it off. So that's what we're doing now. We're just kind of cleaning it all off here. Good time to mention to you, if you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, and you leave it in the comment section, I do try to respond to them. The questions can have anything and everything to do with any reel and every reel. I work on an awful lot of these, and if I can help you get back on track in a reel production project, or if there's maybe you're stuck on something, or maybe you just have a general question about a particular reel, maybe how to use the reel, where the reel is appropriate to be used. Maybe you're considering buying one of these on eBay or something like that, and you just want to know a little bit more about the reel. If I can help you, I will. And if I don't know the answer, and there's plenty of questions I don't know the answers to, some folks in the forum know the answers, and in some cases I can point you to maybe the reel manufacturer that where they can give you the answer for that. All right, well, I'm just mopping up the last little bit. You can see that there was a lot of dirt and stuff that had dried out on the main gear, but other than that, it's fine. When you do this main gear cleaning, you need to check all of the teeth in the main gear to make sure that they're uniform. So make sure that nothing looks out of position here in terms of the piece, and then also look at it from this side. More dirt on that shift there. When you look at it from this side, other than noticing the dirt on the shaft, check the teeth, make sure these are all uniform as well. Sometimes you'll see a wear pattern there that said that the gear has not been running true and it's warped, and that's why you'll get a slip in a main gear. All right, that one's cleaned off. We'll clean off the arm here for the crosswind. This is going to cause the axle shaft to go up and down. That one is off. I'm going to take those two pieces and put them into my parts tray. And then I don't think that we have a bearing up here, but we're going to find out. I'm going to take a 12mm socket. I believe that's what this is going to be. And we'll see if it comes off in a clockwise manner or counterclockwise. And I need a little more leverage. So I'm going to go to a setup here where I can use a driver to do that. And of course, you never have the one that you want when you need it. There we go. And then I need my driver. It always helps to have the pieces nearby, just in case you need to do something like this. And there you go. was just, it was torqued on there pretty good. It looks like this has never been taken off. That looks like the original factory paint there. And I'm thinking that we may only have a bushing underneath here, so there's probably no reason to take it off. But as part of the service, you want to remove the pieces. You want to inspect them. You want to make sure there's nothing broken. And in this case, we have a bearing under there. There you go. All right. Let's see if we can't get that bearing out. Oh, there's a C-clip here. Let's see if I can find my removal tool. This reel's well made, and this is also an indication when you see a bearing like this. That tells you the age of the reel. It's going the wrong way. So these snap ring pliers have points on them. There's two corresponding holes in there. So you want to get the points into the holes. Then in this case you want to compress it and pull up and out. That will remove the snap ring. Then we should be able to push this out. And then we can remove the bearing. You want to test it. It's a little sluggish. I'm just going to clean that out again, like I've cleaned everything else out with that penetrating oil. I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to go ahead and remove the dirt that's in the case. And there's a little bit of dirt behind there that you can't get. And then of course we said that there was an awful lot of dried grease causing that axle shaft to bog down. So let's get that out of here while we're at it. And I'm using a cotton swab to do that. And I think we'll just use a little bit of penetrating oil as well. That should perform a whole lot better. So I get a question an awful lot on these. A lot of people will open these up and not realize there's a spring that controls the override arm for that anti-reverse, and it shoots out, and they want to know how it goes. I'm going to leave this spring in, but this is the spring I'm talking about. It's a V-spring. It nestles into the little cavity here, and the point of the spring is back here. So it's shaped like the letter V, rests inside that cavity, and that's where it goes if somehow yours became dislodged. It's another reason why I take these off when I go to do that. While that penetrating oil is soaking, we're going to go clean the pinion gear here. So this wins, in my mind, in simplicity and design. And simplicity and design with good materials will last a long, long time. This reel hasn't been fishing in a while. We can tell that because of the dried grease. But I'll bet in a day, when this thing was frequently used, it rarely gave that angler any trouble. I got a question the other day about a Mitchell 400 going fishing today, and somebody was kind of knocking the reel because it didn't have 10-ball bearings and it was over-engineered and the like. Well, you know what? Sometimes simple is better. All right, that's cleaned. Let's see how we did with this. Yep, there you go. Just spinning nice and freely like it should. Looks like most of that. There's kind of a shield on this side so that grease is not penetrated or gotten in any trouble there. It's the open side of the bearing that goes down when you go to put this back on. Good place to tell you to take pictures along the way if you have an issue during the assembly or disassembly. If you take the pictures, it's going to help you solve the issue. Bearing goes back on. A little bit of grease onto the teeth of that gear. That's a little bit too much. Get that off. Put a little bit on the shaft as well. I don't know, sometimes this grease just comes out with a chunk. Just going to use my gloved hand to smooth that over. We got a little bit of grease behind that bearing so the inner race can work. I'm going to go ahead and take that and put that back in now. Goes in from the top. Make sure it gets seated all the way down. I guess you don't need to hold that bearing. It's going to be held by that stop. Just making sure that I clear the hole for this. There's a slot that's going to ride in. Now I need that red-handled one. Where was that? Oh, black will do. Again, you want to take this, load those two holes into the, or two prongs into the two holes. Once they're set, compress, lock it in that way, now you're loaded. Pull the axle shaft up. There's a little bit of dirt in the washer underneath here, so let's make sure that, well, it's just dirt, it's not a washer. There is a trip lever under here, so go ahead and put a little bit of oil on that. The inside of this is clean, it's probably never been off the reel. So we can go ahead and reinstall this. This came off in a traditional counterclockwise manner, so it's going to go back on in a clockwise manner. Do as much of that by hand as you can. This is as close to hand as you're going to get. Tighten that down. Just use that ratchet that we used before just for that one kind of final quarter turn. Give it a spin. Make sure that it's spinning nice and easily, and it certainly is. While we're up top here, let's put a drop of oil onto the seams of the bail and onto that line roller, even though it doesn't have a bearing. I'm going to take our main gear now and finish this installation. Take the main gear. I don't know why I got a chunk of grease there, but I do. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease for this. It's a fishing reel grease. I encourage everybody to just use fishing reel greases in the service of their reels. They're relatively inexpensive and are designed for that purpose in mind. Okay, we can put that in now. Take our axle shaft. Now our axle shaft only gets a light coating of grease because anything more than that is just going to scrape off in here as you go to assemble that. I'm going to bring that axle shaft all the way through so that the point of that, there's an opening, is facing outward. Now we have the crosswind arm that goes on next. There's a little shim washer that belongs on top of that. Crosswind arm has been cleared. You can put a little bit of grease on this. There is a track it's going to ride on. Doesn't hurt to have a little bit. This one's easy to figure because the post is already in there. But if you didn't have the post in there, you need to mark which way this is going in terms of orientation. This goes through the hole of the post and it seats in the ridge behind. You can see that little cavity back there. And it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of grease in there. I could have done that before I did the reassembly. We'll do it now. That's fine. Then that little shim washer is going to hold that in place, so that kind of comes on next. All right. On the reinstall of this, you're going to want to make sure that you pull this back when you go to load the case, because this is going to go, if you're looking at it this way, this is going to go into the teeth of that main gear. So what I like to do is kind of center it up, and then when I come over here, I like to just take a pick, pull that out, just like that, and that should seat the anti-reverse now. Now we're in override mode. I'm going to start the cases. Start those case screws now. Just looking for a Phillips head screwdriver, then I realized that the Phillips head screwdriver doesn't work well on this one. It helps to have your tools nearby. Off camera, I've got tools scattered all over the place. It's those of you that have watched some of my videos, maybe in previews, and have seen boxes of tools kind of lay there. My layup on my bench is kind of organized chaos. I've got tools where I know where they are, but if somebody was to try and go down there and go put their hands on a wrench, well, let's just say what works for me may not work for some other folks. All right, that's 2 out of the 3. I promised I would clean up the dirt on the case there. I haven't done that yet. I probably should have done that when I had the rotor off. That's all right. We'll do that right now. We'll go service the drag washers in this and then get it out to Scott to go fishing with. Scott's going to have a busy fishing season. He's got a lot of fishing reels here. I'm going to use Pen Precision Reel Cleaner. It's kitchen scrubby pad, a little one that's available just about anywhere. I just cut 1/4 of them off, make them little corners, and this will help get rid of the tarnish, kind of polish the reel and get rid of any excess greases and the like. All right, we're going to just turn our attention for a moment to the drag stack. The drag stack is held in place by a little clip. Hold your finger on that clip because you don't want it to shoot, and then work one of the open sides up, and then you can remove it by pulling it out. That's the clip we're referring to there. These usually have a tension washer that's up top here, and then they usually have either felt or Teflon washers. In this case, this one has Teflon washers. There's a reason for that. They're self-lubricating. Most of these reels were sold to folks where I think the manufacturers assumed that the folks would not be servicing them much, particularly the drag washers. I can't tell you how many comments I get that say, oh, that's how drag washers work in spinning reels. But regardless, these are a proven technology. They work well, and they'll provide you the drag you need. These are all clean. Doesn't look like anybody's been in here either. So you have 2 washers that are called keyed washers. They have kind of a rectangular center. You have one that has a circular center with 2 ears on it. That's called the eared washer. And they alternate, starting with the first Teflon washer. The next one up then is one of the rectangular or keyed washers. Next one up would be a Teflon washer. The middle one is the eared washer. That goes in the slots in the case that are correspondingly 180 degrees apart. Last of the Teflon washers, last of the keyed washer, and then this little tension washer here. It's got a bell to it. It's not a flat washer. That just gives you some variability in the adjustment of the drag knob. Once you've put those back in, work the spool so that the washers align. In this case, I just knocked one of them off. That's okay. There we go. Tension washer on. And what I forgot, and the reason why it knocked off, I forgot to put that little clip back in. When you go to put the open clips in, don't aim for the holes. Try and go to the side of the holes so that you don't trap one of those wings in that little slot. It would be less effective. This is only a retaining clip. It doesn't serve any purpose other than to hold that drag washer stack in there. And when you do this, just make sure that it's in that little slot in there. All right, now we can go ahead and do this again. Since I have a little bit left over on this kitchen scrub, we might as well polish this up too. And all we have to do is install that handle and give it a test. This is the Zebco 6020. There's a series of these out there, larger and smaller. I happen to like the reels. I'm going to grab our little, we've still got a bend in this, but I'm just not going to do any more with it. It's going to hold it. And sometimes it's best not to tempt fate. You know that it's got a little bit of a bend to it. Somebody over tightened it, I'm assuming, or this handle got whacked. Probably the handle got whacked because I'm noticing the knob on this one just isn't quite square. So when that handle got whacked, it probably bent this. So this is a live with it situation. You're not going to find this screw anywhere. So you're going to live with it. Well, it's not as bad as the first time when I took it out. It did straighten somewhat, but it's certainly not totally true. I'll just tighten that up. I'm going to take that little cap nut that covers the screw. Put that on this side. Test it backwards and forwards. Make sure it's running nice and smooth. I like to test it without that click lever on because I want to make sure that if there's something that's making a noise with that I hear it over the noisemaker. And once we do that, let's go ahead and clip it over to this side. Now we can deal with the noisemaker. There you go. Well, it's working a lot smoother. It doesn't have any indication now of the dried grease that was dragging this reel down. And that's how you do it. That's how you take care of and service a Zebco 6020 circa 1970s made in Japan reel. I hope you've enjoyed that. To all of our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for everything it is that you do and have done during the pandemic. To all, please stay safe, stay well, and stay watching. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.